Who's here with us now? This is, I can't see.
Same people
Same
as before. Jean Vivi joined. Other than that, everyone's the
good.
same.
Yeah. So one thing I'd like to hear from people is, how did that meditation work? For anybody, any of you in the room or on Zoom?
So if you just raise your hand, I'll spotlight you along with Polly. Yeah, Terry.
Let's see. Yeah, that was pretty spectacular to pretend like what I am manifesting and calling in is already in my field, like I'm already experiencing it. Like it just brought me a lot of joy to feel all that.
That's perfect. Right. Do you, and I know you do, Terry, but it's like living from that place of fulfillment, then the external shows up.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, really, right when I don't need it because I feel so good, I'm gonna get it, right? But what is cause and what is effect starts to come into reality for how it operates, right? We think that we feel good when we get it, but we actually get it when we feel good about it. Thanks, Terry. Yeah,
Thank you for leading us through that. That was amazing.
good. Good.
Thank you, Terry. Anyone else have a response to the meditation? If you'll just raise your hand and I will spotlight you.
How does that work for you, Declan?
Oh, Lindsay.
Lindsay. Okay. Anybody in the room is my victim.
Hang
Where's
on,
Lindsay?
hang on.
Okay.
So-
So I think it would have been good, except for I'm very triggered right now. So it just felt very blocking to me just because of that.
Sure. Right. So do you want to do the 6 steps?
Sure. Sounds fun.
I'm triggered.
Yes. So I'm triggered. So, it's funny that you start off with the body. I mean, I know that's the thing, but I went glasses shopping today, which is funny because you were wearing your glasses. So I went glasses shopping today. And this morning I had the most amazing experience and even breakthrough. It was like just in the fullness of experience of love in just a really new and profound way. And I even journaled about it. And so, and I've just been doing a lot of work over the past couple of days. But anyway, so then this afternoon I went glasses shopping and it's just like my mind got completely hijacked. I became super critical of myself, my frames, how I looked, my body, I mean, just things that I wasn't even thinking about, you know? So that's what happened. So yes, I'm triggered. And yes, I know it's about me.
Right. And when you were having all of that experience, what was the feeling?
Very constricted and just hyper aware, hypercritical, maybe. I'm not really sure the emotion. It felt very just tense, tight,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm very concerned, concerned what other people would think or concerned. Yeah.
So using that whole constellation of feelings and just, the drill, but just relax into allowing through free association the earliest time you had those same feelings, that concern and that contraction. What memory comes?
It's a frequent one. When I was growing up, I lived across from a field and a basketball court, and I would always play over there with my friends, and the majority of whom were guys. I was usually the only girl. And so, but then as we started to get older, then some of my friends were having girlfriends and whatever. And so I remember one of them, he had brought a girlfriend that day, and we were just all 3 over there playing basketball and whatever. But was just very concerned about my looks, just felt very hyper aware in that moment, like very comparison of me to her, those type of things. Mhm.
And so the feeling was just like it was this afternoon, then
Mm,
similar.
that's the most similar one that comes up.
Okay.
Sometimes, I don't know, when I do, sometimes when I get triggered, I'm able to do the forgiveness work, go through this right away. And sometimes it feels like I'm so hijacked by it that sometimes it even takes
Right.
me sleeping on it or the next day before
Right.
new clarity comes. And so, yeah, I don't know. So I don't know if tomorrow I'll feel something new. I don't know. But is that a common experience?
Right, it is because, and it may point to how these wounds get laid down in layers, or that's a way to talk about it anyway. It's like they have different facets or different layers to them. And that's why sometimes even with the same trigger, a similar trigger, the wound of the memory may go take you to a different place.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah. Because
So
it feels more right now. And I actually wanted to do it here in the space instead of by myself because I was trying to do it, but it just feels my body feels so confiscated by it that it feels unavailable, kind of. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's almost
Well,
as I continue in this, the triggers keep getting, not all the time, but sometimes they're just so strong and they're not obviously in
right.
relation to the thing that happened or didn't happen, but. Mhm.
Yeah. See, are experiencing any early wounding, our very first instinct is to not experience that. We don't want to feel that way. We don't want to feel that we're not the one, or that we're not the pretty one, or we're not the good one. So the resistance is a big part of the early wounding.
Mhm.
So that starts to come into play when these triggers show up.
Mhm.
We don't want to feel it. It's a component part of the entire childhood wound, for sure.
Mhm.
So can you imagine, Lindsay, if in that scene where you went across the street and one of your guy friends had brought his girlfriend? Yeah.
Mhm.
Can you imagine just having the fun of the three of you playing together
Mhm.
without the comparative? Just see
Mhm.
what it would
Yeah.
have been like. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So when you had the experience that felt like you installed something the reason I went in that direction I just did was just to give us a sense of the malleability and consciousness around what we do that creates the woundedness. So we can see clearly, all of us can see that if we had not taken it personally or it hadn't meant anything about a me, that it would have just been more fun playing basketball with my friend.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, but
Mhm.
because the already in place rejecting injured child is there, then it immediately starts to set up that way. We'll just go the next step just to see where you get. When that happened across the street with your friend and his girlfriend who came to play with the three of you, when you felt like you were not pretty as she was, you weren't as
Mhm.
good. I bet you were a better basketball player, right? Yes.
That's funny. Maybe.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but whatever went on, when that happened, you believed it meant something about you, and that got installed. And the reason that it's still there is because we repress it, even though we may consciously be able to describe it. The energy of it, the conclusion of it, the way in which we've turned against ourselves in that manner gets repressed. So just free associate right now. What is it that that day, in that circumstance, did you conclude that that meant about you? I must be.
I mean, there must be something wrong with me because I became very hyper aware, hyper active about myself. So it was something, yeah, something's wrong with me that he brought her, or probably, like why wasn't I
Right.
why wasn't I a good enough
Right.
friend?
Yeah. Yeah, so when that got installed, now we are in touch with the distortion field that installation created, right? The distortion field is revealed through the triggers. So now we're in touch with that distortion field, and that's what happened when you went shopping for glasses today.
Yeah.
All of that self-judgment, all of that self-rejection, that self-doubt, that all of which is really painful. It's painful to the little girl, to that little Lindsay. But that is what got installed. Make sense?
Yep. Yeah.
So now, if you can see that, and what I mean, what I want you to see and see it in your mind's eye is the distortion field that put into place. It's like if our consciousness had a place where windows went down, and that aspect of our own self-awareness, there was an installation of a screen or a lens that was distorted by that conclusion. What was your conclusion? There must be something wrong with me.
Yeah, there must be something wrong with me, and because obviously I'm not good enough. If you have to go in and have a different friend, then I'm not good enough.
Right. Yeah. So it's seeing that right now, seeing it as the lens that got installed. Now we are at the intersection in the work where there's a difference between what you have, which is that conclusion, and who you are, that you and I together represent as awareness, looking at, observing, seeing that conclusion and the distortion lens that it created, right? And so it's like I reclaim all of my identity out of that unavoidable conclusion of that little 5, 6, 7-year-old girl. I know who I am.
Yeah.
I am literally the awareness in which this whole story of basketball playing with the boys across the street, and maybe you may have really loved being the only girl, right?
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Right. It's like that's your movie. That's the gestalt, that's the whole thing, and you're the awareness shining on it. Now what you can do, because anything that you can see, you can let it continue to move along. Before you thought it was you, and so you didn't have the same access as you have now. This is the beauty of the 6 steps, is these distinctions between what I have that I created unavoidably, no judgment here, and what I am is the awareness of that. And the reason that this has not moved out of the way is because of our resistance to it. We don't want to believe that we're not good enough, that we're not enough. And that resistance is what installed it as an operating system, basically, and then shows up in our Netflix series. It's done deal. I forgive myself for ever having believed that there's something wrong with me.
Yeah. I forgive myself for ever having believed that there's something wrong with me.
I know who I am.
I know who I am.
So it is.
Yeah. Thank
And
you.
that will be, and you can revisit that, as you know, and as we do together in your sessions, but, yeah, more and more light. We think that we are behind in our awakening process when a trigger is so strong and comes up again because of the work we've been doing. It's like, don't they just get to be less? Well, no, that in order to really get a handle on them and clear them out, we need whatever we need in terms of their activation.
Thank
Did
you.
you pick out?
Nope, it made me want to drink, so I left.
Was there a bar nearby? Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Lindsay. Yeah, it's really helpful to everybody when we do the work together. Who's up? Somebody talk to me.
Okay, Polly, it's Heidi. I'll talk.
There you go.
I don't know how to get my camera on. But anyway, Zoom meeting. Here, I'm walking the dog. Okay, so Polly, when I did the meditation and the visualization,
Mhm.
it was about money. I wanted to have enough money so I could have any experiences I wanted, go anywhere and have deep connections with people and things, I just didn't want any restriction on that. And as I was sitting with that, like just imagining there was an abundance of money that I could fly to, anywhere, do anything, I realized, well, why do I need to go places? Why do I need to go to workshops? Why do I need to do anything? I could have that in any moment, any time. And I didn't like that. I didn't like that thought because I realized I am attached to like the juicy, the real stuff that seems more something than just doing it like with a tree or on my deck or something, which is fine. It's just I'd like to be able to go to Maui whenever I want, go to Bali, go to anything. So I guess that's all I want to say, is that I could see the benefit of feeling that amazing, I already have it. And then I was disappointed. I still wanted to have the money to be able to do whatever I wanted.
Right. So what you believe is that when you have the experience like the money or the travel or the party or the whatever, that what you're experiencing is out there in that.
Right. Right.
When you have the money, when you have the gourmet meal, when you have whatever it is that you think will give you the experience, you still experience that here. We don't experience it out there. It's like the fulfillment looks as if it's out there because we do live in a projected reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you and I both know, and I mean, I'm here on Maui, we often see it. Well, I don't see things, but other people do who tell me about it. The families down at the beach where the young father is jerking the kids around because they're not having enough fun in their Hawaii vacation. It's like
Right.
the way people are in the middle of what we would call the fun of it, the glory of it, the money of it, you know, whatever, it still is here or it's not. And it doesn't depend on that. So
Right.
it's not about not having that. It's about knowing that what I'm experiencing is who I'm being to myself. And that from that place, then the external matches that. It energetically and then materially it matches that. And so we start to have the sense of the flexibility, the malleability of consciousness showing up as this amazing gourmet meal or this amazing first-class travel or whatever. But if you are not there within yourself on your own behalf, you can have that and not have any of the experience of the fun, the ease, the deliciousness of it.
Okay, so as you're talking, I have a little battle going on about like just Heidi, let go of the desires to go anywhere or do anything and just be, which is a great thing, not to have attachment. But then it's confusing for me because what the heck am I here for? If it's not to have a desire to, you know, manifest enough money to do whatever I want. So that sounds a little crazy, but
No, not at all. And I think that's true. But what I said was not contrary to that.
yeah.
For you to have the fulfillment within you is what assures the fulfillment without you, apart from you, right? I mean,
Right.
we act as if when we get that, we'll feel this. But when we feel this, all of that shows up, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
So
so, you know,
the real work
we
still
can
just
skip the
comes
middleman.
home. Right. Right.
The what?
Oh, the real work is just inside, to be present.
It just is. It is. And then the fun of the materiality, the 3D, right? But your movie changes according to, in my simplistic way of teaching this particular issue, it's who you're being to yourself. If you are ranting on yourself about not making enough money, about not having enough friends, about whatever that is, then if you had all the money and you had all the friends, you wouldn't experience it. You'd still be against yourself. So there's
Yeah,
the
no,
first
I
direction.
totally get that, because most people that I know who have a lot of money, they're convoluted. Like they've, you know, like they're a little messed up. They're not really enjoying it. Like I have a relative who loves to eat really nice food, but really resented, like he was always having to treat people because he could afford, he's, you know, a millionaire, he could afford the nice meals, but his friends couldn't. So he always ended up treating, and he got tired of always treating. And he was unhappy about that. And so it's still a trap. I don't want, you know, if I have money, I don't want to feel a trap.
No.
I guess, you know, this is a little bit of a jump ship from that, but I can really see from the previous person's share, I can see how I avoid getting triggered by trying to stay in my lane, stay in line, because I don't want to feel, you know, and I guess I don't want to get too attached to like traveling, because if I don't have the money, then I'm disappointed that I can't go places. So I don't really know how to manage that avoidance thing, because it's pretty insidious. It comes a lot.
Yeah, it's a kind of a, like you said, it's an avoidance pattern. But see, you have access to the peace and the ease and the freedom now, unless your mind goes into the belief, I can't have that. And so I need to feel good with just this. This is what I've got, right? And that is just an aspect of the wounded. That's just an adaptive behavior to avoid experiencing the woundedness. So it's like the freedom to be authentically present on your own behalf is a high frequency. because it no longer is a frequency of fear. And that's where the polarity is in the range of our identities. It's we're self-rejecting or we're self-promoting, and we're caught on this stick, this polarity. And if you go meta to that, and you are present here in the experience of your true nature, which feels good, which feels like love and connection and peace and ease, then the projected reality, which is what it is, we've got a space-time headset on, and we've got a virtual reality going on out here, and the way that it shows up depends on us not being against ourselves, because what shows up out here can't be for us if we're against ourselves. Now, for a lot of people, just like you were talking about your friend, what shows up out here can feel like it's against us, because even though we are a millionaire, we don't experience the fulfillment and the ease and the fun of that, right? So who we're being to ourselves then shows up out here as people feeling as if people have expectations and are counting on us to pick up the tab or whatever. So it's just telling yourself the truth about what makes right here, right now, feel good, feel satisfying, feel present, because this is what you're offering into creating a future. Who you're being right here, right now, to yourself, which will extend to your world, is what is the information that this energetic reality then shows up in what we call the future.
Well, I can really see as
installation-
you're talking that the avoidance is fear. The avoidance of getting triggered is fear. And
Yeah.
going even deeper, I know I just cut you off. I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were about to speak.
It's all right.
And I want to say that one thing that I'm really holding on to and it's working is if I can see it, it's not me. And then once I start seeing the truth and telling myself the truth, it gets easier and more rapid, more quick to see the difference between the truth and the erroneous conclusion. So that's been really kind of exciting for me.
That's such a good practice. Yeah. That's practicing the distinction between being caught up in a fear-based person identity and being awake to true nature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you so much, Polly. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Heidi.
Good.
Appreciate
Good to have you on my
talking
walk.
with me. Yes.
All right. Love you.
I feel
Bye.
exercised. Yes.
So we have about 8 more minutes. Anyone else? Janine has joined. Anyone else? Yeah, Kathy, you want to? Yeah.
Sure. I think this is a nice segue into kind of like what I've been experiencing, because everything in my life is pretty good, right? It's all flowing. And yet I have a sense of dread. And a few weeks ago when we talked, like I could have pinpointed like, oh, the dread is because of my thinking about this situation or that situation. But now I'm not thinking about any situation. I'm not concerned about a situation. And I just have like a solar plexus contraction of like non-focused dread contraction. And I've done the 6 steps with it. You know, I can get to sort of a childhood situation of being responsible for people. Like having a sense of there's something wrong, there's something off, and I'm small and not powerful enough to handle the situation, even though maybe it's my responsibility to do that.
So is that a kind of childhood memory or a sense that of and things that were going on in your childhood?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe, and I think it was probably pre-verbal, but something's wrong and I'm not equipped to help everybody yet. I should be.
Right. Yeah, so at that point, the installation is in place, right? I should know this, or I should be able to do this, and I can't do it. And the conclusion that got installed, that came out of that, is I think of these sort of amorphous experiences, like dread is one, sometimes anxiety is another, is that they're like the off-gassing of the wound. It's like you haven't been triggered into the wound necessarily, but it's like there's this atmospheric kind of thing going on that we would call dread. So it still is dependent on something that you concluded, even though it doesn't seem to have that bite right now.
I just had a thought about that, and that is yesterday, Cameron and I went for a hike for most of the day in Pali, and I didn't touch my phone for most of the day. And then as we got to, within 15 minutes of home or so, I went to look at the texts and I got that feeling. I didn't have that feeling all day. And then, right when I'm about to interact with people, I had that.
Right. So it sort of seems attached to the experience that there may be something that you can't know, that you haven't been keeping up. Like you had an obligation, or someone had an expectation of you, right? You have a self-judgment around living up to expectation, I suspect.
I believe so. Yeah. Especially being the first
We
child.
don't want to, right, exactly. Exactly. That number one child syndrome. Yeah. And so that is seeing that expectation, you concluded something about yourself when you felt the imposition of that and the inability to measure up. And you probably created some adaptive behaviors that were being better than you wanted to be, being the good girl, being more responsible than you wanted to be, I suspect.
This is true. Yeah.
So all of that was unavoidable for you, including that sense of responsibility that got installed, that now the off-gassing of that feels like a dread, or like you're on tenuous ground. What did you believe it meant about you?
So when I tap into that, there is some sense of I'm incapable, and it's wow, it's almost the perspective of a small child. I'm supposed to be up there, but I'm down here.
Yeah. Yeah, I think all of us often had an experience that there was more expected of us than we could have any sense of being capable of. It was kind of like the sea we swam in, it may never have been spoken, but I think that it's often, especially the eldest. So it's at that point, I suspect you installed a self-concept that had to do with inadequacy.
I
What's
forgive
your other
myself
one that we, yeah,
for not knowing what I'm
that's
what
right.
no, yeah.
Yeah.
That's my big one. I forgive myself for ever having believed I'm inadequate. that I don't know what I'm supposed to know. And I can't know it. I know the truth.
Another
I know
truth,
what
yes.
I am.
In the moment when any experience like the dread or the feeling of inadequacy arises, it's certainly available to use that for to do the 6 steps. But the other thing that as we move along in the direction of having worked many of these wounds over and over, it's just like the minute that you have the experience of the contraction, which we would call the trigger, then that shines a bright light on what that feeling is, right? And
Yes.
it may just be dispelled in that moment. Because it's what's happening is that this experience is just bringing it into the light. The minute that you had to go pick up your phone hadn't occurred to you all day that there might be things you should have responded to. But now that was the bright light on that. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you, Polly.
Thanks, Kathy.